Running a business is hard enough. Don't make it harder with a dozen apps that don't talk to each other. One for sales, another for inventory, a separate one for accounting. That's software overload. Odoo is the all-in-one platform that replaces them all. CRM, accounting, inventory, e-commerce, HR. Fully integrated, easy to use, and built to grow with your business. Thousands have already made the switch. Why not you? Try Odoo for free at odoo.com. That's odoo.com.
How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 2.
Hello, America. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the United States. The phone number is 877-973-7425. If you wish to be on the program today, I would be happy to have you. Those of you on the line, be patient. I will get to you. There's a lot to cover. You should know that the Iranians are now sending out footage of the 9/11 attack on the World Trade Center in New York, claiming that they have hit Benjamin Netanyahu's apartment complex in Tel Aviv. That's how things are going for the Iranians right now. Not good. Now, I gotta pivot to what happened in New York City over the weekend. There was a terror attack in New York this weekend. A Islamist inspired by ISIS threw an IED. Okay. Y'all, listen, I need to apologize in advance, because I occasionally say Iraq when I mean Iran. And I am deathly, deeply afraid of saying IUD instead of IED. I'm sorry. Sorry. Just if I mess up, show me some grace, please. There was a protest this weekend in New York City over the Islamification of New York and the growing number of mosques in New York that blare out the call to prayer. I assume y'all know what the call to prayer is. 5 times a day, Muslims are commanded to face Mecca and pray. And you hear it, Allah Akbar, Allah. I grew up with it. It doesn't bother me. It bothers a lot of people around here. I grew up with it overseas, heard it all the time. In fact, even on the newscasts at night on the TV channels, they would pause television at night and they arranged television around the times of prayer. So your TV show would end and they would show a picture of a mosque and you would hear the call to prayer, and Muslims who were watching would know it was time for them to pray. Christians could use some prayer discipline. Nonetheless, there was a protest in New York City over the call to prayer and the Islamification of New York. And at that protest, counter-protesters showed up. Good progressive whites of New York showed up to show that they are tolerant. And along with them, a couple of Islamic radicals who are American citizens from Pennsylvania showed up and threw an improvised explosive device with a fuse at the protesters, hoping to kill them. In fact, there is some remarkable footage. Now, you can't see this, but what I want to describe to you in this footage is that there's a protester who is on his bullhorn. His name is Walter Masterson, and he is saying that all people are welcome in New York. And as he's yelling on a bullhorn that all are welcome in New York, the Islamic radical comes up from behind him running and throws the IED.
We were born and raised in New York, and
The guy, the Islamic radical, yelled, Allahu Akbar, and he threw the improvised explosive device. Now, what I find kind of funny, and Walter Masterson claims to be a comedian, what I find very funny is that Walter Masterson is today declaring that he stands by what he said, that all are welcome, and we should oppose the racism and intolerance of those who don't want the call to prayer in New York. And Walter Masterson would be dead today had that IED exploded the way its makers wanted. Walter Masterson will go to his grave defending the Islamic radicals. Now, what I also find very notable is Mayor Mamdani of New York, who held a press conference about this Islamic terrorist attempt in New York City. And it was, by the way, the New York police are treating it as inspired by ISIS, as an act of Islamic terror. And this is how the mayor of New York City began the press conference.
On Saturday, a protest was held outside Gracie Mansion, where I live with my wife, Rama. Neither of us were home at the time. This was a vile protest rooted in white supremacy entitled Stop the Islamic Takeover of New York City. I'm the first Muslim mayor of our city. Anti-Muslim bigotry is nothing new to me, nor is it anything new for the 1 million or so Muslim New Yorkers who know this city as our home. While I found this protest appalling, I will not waver in my belief that it should be allowed to happen. Ours is a free society where the right to peaceful protest is sacred. It does not belong only to those we agree with. It belongs to everyone. I will defend that right every day that I am mayor, even when those protesting say things that I abhor. Let me also be clear about something else. New York City will never tolerate violence, whether from protests or counter-protests. Many of the counter-protesters met this display of bigotry peacefully, with a vision of a city that is welcoming to all.
Notice he never actually condemned the Islamic terror. Now, what's actually notable is that there is a lawyer in New York City when Islamists commit acts of terror, he rushes to defend them. Pro bono, that guy now works for Mamdani, and he can't defend these guys. Emir Balat is one of the bomb throwers. He told police he wanted Saturday's attack to be more deadly than the Boston Marathon bombing. This is actually from the statement put into evidence in the indictment in the NYPD vehicle en route to the NYPD precinct. Balat, without being questioned by the NYPD officers transporting him, made the following spontaneous utterances in part, and as captured on the transponding NYPD officer's body-worn camera footage, quote, "This isn't a religion that just stands when people talk about the blessed name of the prophet. We take action. We take action. If I didn't do it, someone else will come and do it." After arriving at the precinct and being advised of and waiving his Miranda rights, Balat requested a piece of paper, and after giving a piece of paper and pen, wrote the following: "All praise is due to Allah, Lord of all worlds. I pledge my allegiance to the Islamic State. Die in your rage, you kafar, Emir B. Based on my training and experience, I know that kufar is an Arabic term that refers to non-believers or infidels, and that die in your rage is a slogan used by ISIS and based on a verse of the Quran." Law enforcement officers later asked Balat if he was familiar with the Boston Marathon bombing and if this was what Balat was hoping to accomplish. Balat responded, "No, even bigger. That was only 3 deaths. Based on my training and experience, I know that on or about April 15, 2013, 2 individuals planted 2 homemade pressure cooker bombs that detonated near the finish line of the Boston Marathon. 3 people were killed, hundreds injured in the terror attack. This guy wishes to have more terror attacks. This guy wished to have more dead. This guy claimed that he was inspired by ISIS. And the mayor of New York's reaction is first to attack the protesters who did not want the Islamification of New York City, nor the Islamic radicals. The mayor of New York seemed to be pretty quiet and did not condemn Islamic radicalism in New York. Now, the mayor's wife, likewise, has been exposed. Turns out that Zohran Mamdani's wife, who cosplays as a foreigner, was on social media on and around October 7th, liking social media posts of people defending the murders of Jews in Israel. Zoran Mandani says his wife is a private citizen. No, she played an active role in his campaign. He listens to her advice. You know what I find interesting? She's a particular type of a progressive. She is born in Houston, Texas. On social media, she claims she's from Damascus, Syria. Her parents are immigrants to the country. She's not. She's a native-born American citizen and cosplays as a Syrian. She does this because it makes her more exotic. Let's be clear about this. She wants to be exotic. There are a group of progressive whites who are in decline in the world, and they're holding on to race and virtue of race as a way to make themselves seem superior and more exotic, and that's what she's doing. She's a native-born American citizen born in Houston, Texas, who claims to be from Damascus because it makes her more exotic, and that makes her more special, and she hates the Jews. She was liking posts celebrating the raping of women and the murdering of children in Israel. She's liking those posts. She's liking the posts about globalizing the Intifada and Palestine from river to sea. She's doing that. Now, Zoran Mandani, her husband, did the same thing. After October 7th, he was in the streets cheering on the Palestinians. The New York Times referred to Mandani's wife liking posts cheering on the murder of Jews as supporting the Palestinian cause, which apparently is murdering Jews. And these people won't condemn the ISIS attack in New York City. By the way, the New York Times tried to claim that the man threw a device filled with metal and pieces, metal fragments. It was actually loaded with nails and razor blades, if I remember that right. Or nails for sure. Or maybe nuts and bolts and other things designed to kill and maim individuals should it explode. It had a fuse. The New York Times originally attempted to play down what was thrown, and then when there was outrage, changed the headline to improvised explosive device. None of these progressives really care about this. So, by the way, that reminds me. I interviewed my friend Michael Youssef a couple of weeks ago. He's got a book coming out. And it is a book on how the progressive secular atheist left is aligned with Islamic radicalism. It's called an unholy alliance. In fact, let me hang on a second. Let me do this for you. This is a book. So this is a very, very easy book to read. And I did an interview with him. They asked me if I would please read the book. I was like, oh my gosh, read a book? Really? There's so many words. I'm just tired of reading books these days, folks. I got to read news articles all the time. I got to read magazine articles all the time. The last thing I want to do is read a book. Really? You want me to read a book? And I was like, okay, it's not a bad book. It's not a long book. I'll read the book. And I got intrigued by the book. And it really does break down how the left in this country, the secular left, is allied with the Islamic radicals and are allowing the takeover in this country, in certain segments of the country, of the Islamic radicalism, which will then, once it's dominant, silence the left. If you text the word engage, I'll send you a link to Michael Youssef's book, Unholy Alliance. Text the word engage to 33777. The book is called Unholy Alliance. It's by Michael Youssef. And it really breaks down how secular progressivism is bringing about an Islamic invasion in the United States through the Muslim Brotherhood, which tries to mainstream itself as some secular group that advances the interests of the Middle East, when actually it's a far, far, far deeper, sinister organization. There's a red-green alliance happening right now between Muslims and of the Muslim Brotherhood. In fact, one of the things that I appreciate about Michael Youssef is that he distinguishes between the Mecca and Medina Muslims. Now, that's a phrase that comes from a philosopher, that essentially there are a lot of Muslims in this country who are peace-loving, who just want to worship their faith, and they are Mecca Muslims. When Muhammad left Mecca and went to Medina, his philosophy got more aggressive about conquest, subversion, and subjectification of non-believers. And so the Muslims who want conquest, who want to silence you, who want to subject you to abuse, this philosopher calls them Medina Muslims. Because if you read the Quran, Muhammad's philosophy changes over time. And what philosophers say is you got to read the prior statements by the future statements, the statements that he made after he went to Medina. And Michael Youssef explains all this, that there are Muslims in this country who you can have as friends who aren't going to try to kill you, force your conversion, subject you to abuse or anything like that. But then there are also those like the Muslim Brotherhood that believe they should move into a country, pretend to be friends, and once they're dominant, silence you. And you really should consider this book. If you text ENGAGE to 33777, I'll send you the link. An Unholy Alliance, How Progressivism Brought About an Islamist Invasion. We're seeing that in New York City, where as we now have a Muslim mayor of New York City, he is working overtime to condemn the white people of New York City and giving a complete pass to the Islamic radicals who literally tried to engage in a terroristic attack over the weekend, and he can't bring himself to condemn them. Greetings, conversationalists. Welcome. Just so you know, crude prices are below $100 a barrel now, and the Dow, NASDAQ, and S&P, they're all still underwater, but trending towards positive territory now. The Dow had been down over 600 points, is now only down about 400 points. NASDAQ had been down about 100 points, is now only down 51 points. S&P is now only down 38 points. So we're headed in the right direction. All around headed in the right direction. By the way, here's some trivia for you. Americans really hate AI. They really hate AI. An NBC News poll has come out of what Americans hate. Do you know there are only two things Americans hate more than artificial intelligence? Do you know what they are? There are only two things Americans hate more than AI. No, not Donald Trump. No, Donald Trump is actually liked more than AI. You know what's hated more than AI? The Democratic Party and Iran. Well done, Democrats. Now, let me tell you about Vision Computers. They can be your managed IT service for your home or your office. Now, look, they build computers, they upgrade computers for you, but let me give you the sweet spot for Vision Computers. Call them at 404-COMPUTER today. You can do this for yourself. You got a computer, your kid's going to college with a computer, your senior citizen parent has a computer, and you don't want to be tech support. You can set up with Vision Computers their managed IT for that computer or for your whole office. If you got a small business, you can't afford an in-house IT guy, use Vision Computers. Everyone will get a number. Your mom, your dad, your son, your daughter, when they go off to college, you, your business, your secretary, your assistant, your employees, and they can call this number and in 15 seconds or less get a live human being, not AI, on the phone and figure out what's going on with their computer. If they've lost a file, they'll help them find it. They can't get the email set up, they'll get email set up. Having printer problems, they'll help you with the printer problems. Do it for your whole office. Do it for you. Do it for your loved one. 404-COMPUTE. Give them a call today. Anybody nationwide. If you're in Anchorage, Alaska, Honolulu, Hawaii, Miami, Florida, you take advantage of it. 404-COMPUTER, visioncomputers.com. Let Vision Computers help you. Hello and welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. The phone number is 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, I would be very happy to have you. The government is partially shut down still. The Department of Homeland Security is shut down. In New Orleans, Louisiana today, the wait time to get through TSA is over 3 hours. That is an absurd amount of time for that particular airport, Louis Armstrong Airport. It is, and it's increasing around the country as people simply are not showing up. I am looking in Atlanta, Georgia right now, where it is 29 minutes in North Terminal to get through, and only 17 minutes in the main terminal. 5 minutes if you go through the International Terminal, and 5 minutes through checkout, which is Atlanta's a well-oiled machine. But a lot of airports around the country, it is becoming extremely, extremely difficult to get through airports because the Transportation Safety Administration, they're not getting paid. And employees are not showing up for work. And lines are building. And the Democrats refuse at a time of war to reopen TSA. And remember, it's the Coast Guard and FEMA as well that are not being funded. And they're doing it to hold hostage the funding for ICE and Border Patrol, which are already funded through the end of 2028. This is Tim Kaine, the senator from Virginia, talking about the government shutdown on Face the Nation.
Completely agree. Let's fund all these agencies that don't have funds right now, and let's confine the ICE and CBP discussion to what are the reforms necessary.
Why isn't that happening?
Well, we've offered this on the floor, and the Republicans have thus far rejected. They've said you got to fund everything or nothing, and we said we've agreed on all the other agencies. Let's do that. But ICE and CBP need reforms. We've made that very, very plain, and American citizens want there to be reforms, and so that is the focus right now. And they do have enough money because the Republicans provided to them last summer in the reconciliation bill.
Well, exactly. But he's doing a three-card Monty. He's shuffling the deck so that you don't pay attention. Yes, the Republicans have funded it, but what he wants to now do is say, we will fund the rest of Homeland Security and pull back the funding from ICE and Border Patrol in order to reform them. So the Republicans are saying, no deal, no dice. That's not going to happen. It is absurd to me that we're here. And by the way, the Strategic Petroleum Reserve as well needs to be filled up. We can't release the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. That's what Chuck Schumer is asking, is the president to release oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. But Chuck Schumer is the one who bragged about blocking Donald Trump in 2020 from being able to fill up the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. Why is the Strategic Petroleum Reserve mostly empty? Democrats don't want to talk about it. They want to blame Donald Trump for it being mostly empty. They don't want to talk about why it's mostly empty. It's mostly empty because Joe Biden, in order to help Kamala Harris in 2024, released the Strategic Petroleum Reserve so that oil prices would go down, so that grocery prices would go down, because energy prices would go down. And it was a political action. There was no emergency, and Joe Biden did it anyway. And Democrats don't want to talk about why it's empty. They blocked Donald Trump from refilling it, and then they blessed Joe Biden completely emptying it. And now they're like, we don't have any Strategic Petroleum Reserve. This is crucial to our national infrastructure. Donald Trump has made us vulnerable. No, you Democrats did it. And now you don't want to fund Homeland Security either. I'm beginning to wonder if Homeland Security is actually necessary. If we can go this long without it being funded, why do we need it? We've got a security theater at the airports. Let's be real honest here. Do you really think putting your liquids and gels in the Ziploc bag is really doing anything at this point? In fact, most airports now have security machines that can detect any compromised products. Taking your shoes off and your belt off, taking your laptop out. Do you really think? Because when I go through pre-check, because I got pre-check, I don't have to take my belt off. I don't have to take my shoes off. I don't have to take my laptop out of my bag. What does taking your laptop out of your bag really mean? They still check it. Occasionally I get stopped because I travel with an enormous amount of equipment in my bag. I got wires. I try to keep everything bundled up and separated, but I got my iPad and I've got my laptop typically when I travel. And inevitably I'll go through security at some airports and they make me take out the laptop and the iPad because they can't see both of them together without complicating things. Does it really matter? You can tell there aren't explosives. And then they want you to leave them turned on so they can open them and see that they're real. So much of it is security theater. I have a friend of mine who went through an airport that will remain nameless but might be named after two dead mayors and got his gun through. Only afterwards did he realize it, and it was a very awkward conversation. But he realized it after he got through that they had missed it, and he went and reported on himself. And because he reported on himself, it was an accident. Nothing happened, thankfully. But I got another friend who went through and had a bullet in his carry-on bag. He had been shooting that weekend, had a bullet in his carry-on bag, and he got in trouble for having the bullet in his carry-on bag. My favorite one, though, is I got a guy I'm friends with here in town who went through the Atlanta airport. Maybe I shouldn't say this because they'll change things, but it's too funny. He went through the Atlanta airport, got in line, and realized he had his knife with him. So in the Atlanta airport, there's a area surrounded by restaurants, big courtyard area. They got trees and stuff. So he went to that area where the big potted plant trees are, and he dug a hole in the dirt in one of the pots, buried his knife because it was a family heirloom knife, buried it, went on his trip, came back, went back to the potted plant, and dug his knife back up and took it home. A lot of it is security theater, but if something bad happens, you kind of want it. And right now, whether you like it or not, you kind of need it. And the result, of course, is that the Democrats don't want to fund it. The Democrats have shut down the Department of Homeland Security. And let's recall the history. The Department of Homeland Security was started after 9/11 because there was a belief that the disjointedness of coordination with the federal government could be resolved by creating a massive bureaucracy. They put Tom Ridge, God rest his soul, in charge of Homeland Security at the time, and it was designed to coordinate responses for terror, among other things. Remember back in the day, you had the color-coded days. We'd have the yellow days, the orange days, the red days. We had to be on high alert. We now know, again, I'm going to play you this again. This is the shortwave radio messaging after the Ayatollah was assassinated by the bomb. That is Farsi language. It is the Iranian Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps broadcasting out to sleeper cells around the world, waking them up. The Israelis are now confirming that's what that was the Farsi language numerical codes waking up the sleeper cells around the world. They have not, thank God, yet taken action, and hopefully they are too impotent to do so. But remember, under the Biden administration, a massive number of people came across the border in the United States who are unaccounted for. We know they came across. We don't know who they are. We just know they got away. And the Democrats aren't funding Homeland Security to go find those people. Thankfully, Border Patrol and ICE are funded, but the entire intelligence network of the United States needs to be deployed, and it's not being deployed. And the Democrats are dancing around what's going on here. This is the President of the United States aboard Air Force One this weekend.
Respond to that allegation. Did the U.S. have you detailed?
They are among the most evil people ever on earth. They cut babies' heads off. They chop women in half. What they did, take a look at October 7th. Take a look at what they've done over the last 47 years. So I know nothing about a desalinization plant other than to say if they're complaining about a desalinization plant, we complain about the fact that they shouldn't be chopping babies' heads off, okay?
They are a brutal, monstrous regime. They are a brutal, monstrous regime. And yet you got Chris Murphy, who's one of the big apologists for the Iranian regime, on television this weekend, claiming we need a diplomatic solution here. This guy is deeply, deeply malevolent.
Former colleague, Senator, now Secretary of State Marco Rubio, he would say, were he here, there is a difference between Iran having a nuclear weapon and all the other regimes you're referring to that you oppose their leaders. I imagine you're talking about China and Russia, in that the mullahs in Iran, this is, again, Rubio's characterization, are madmen, and they believe in holy war, and they believe in killing the crusaders of the United States and the Jews of Israel. And there is a special degree of unacceptability for them having a nuclear weapon.
So, I don't disagree, but what I disagree with is that an aerial military campaign or even the insertion of ground forces can permanently dislodge Iran from having a nuclear weapon. Again, you were talking about knowledge. That can't be bombed out of existence.
So how do you stop it?
A diplomatic agreement. We had a diplomatic agreement. Barack Obama negotiated an agreement in which Iran was more than a year away from getting a weapon. We had daily inspections scouring the country. It was working. Donald Trump's advisors told him it was working. He threw that agreement into the trash, which precipitated the crisis that we are in today. This is a place where diplomacy probably is the only true path to make sure that Iran doesn't have a nuclear weapon.
It's not that Chris Murphy is naive. It's that he hates the country. Chris Murphy wants Iran to have a nuclear weapon. He says he doesn't. He'll never publicly admit it. But Chris Murphy has always been on the side of the opponents of the United States, and he's always wanted the United States weaker. He's one of those progressives who believes the world would be safer if we were weaker. A lot of these progressives in this country, they want Iran to have nuclear weapons because they don't believe they'll really use them. They just believe that we cannot bully them if they have nuclear weapons, and they think we're the bully. They don't understand that the Iranian theocracy is premised on bringing about the apocalypse and that Iran is the one country on planet Earth that would use nuclear weapons because the entire existence of the Iranian regime is to bring about the destruction of Israel and the United States. And they may not be able to make a nuclear missile, but they could make dirty bombs with access to uranium to be able to wipe out Israel, render it radioactive, to render New York City radioactive. It's what they want. They say they want it. I told you the story of the Spanish prime minister who asked the Ayatollah Khomeini what he woke up in the morning thinking about, and he said the destruction of Israel. The Ayatollah, when asked why he was pursuing nuclear weapons, said because Israel is a one-bomb nation. This is Steve Witkoff aboard Air Force One talking about the negotiations with the Iranians.
They bragged about having 60% enriched fuel, enough for 11 bombs. They told me and Jared, we're not going to give you diplomatically what you couldn't take militarily. So, I think they're going to need a change of attitude.
We're not going to give you diplomatically what you could not take militarily. And Chris Murphy is still out there saying, we need a diplomatic solution. We need a diplomatic solution. Well, we need a diplomatic solution with a new regime. This is Reza Pahlavi on Fox News with Laura Trump.
So, Prince Pahlavi, when and if a government transition begins, do you believe that those who do accept that immunity or others may try to stand in the way of progress?
Let me stress the importance of why we say, and I say, that except for those people who have been criminally implicated with this regime and have the blood of the Iranian people on their hand, there are many elements within the military, police forces, security forces, as well as the civil bureaucracy that can survive regime change and be part of the solution. That's the quickest way to ensure a stable transition. They have to be part of the solution as opposed to remain part of the problem. As a matter of fact, my own messaging, both to the military or security forces as well as the civil bureaucracy, is the fact that they can see a future for themselves. We're not talking about de-Baathification like in Iraq. We're talking about a totally different scenario of change. I think this is something that should be acceptable to the American administration, and I think this is most importantly what is acceptable to the people of Iran. I think our Iranian the elements inside will only trust a scenario whereby they are not only guaranteed their survival, provided that they are not criminally implicated, but will be part of the solution, and they will accept that as a true scenario of reconciliation, national unity. And I think that goes hand in glove with if that's the end game that we are looking for, whether it is from our prism or the prism you have right now under President Trump's administration.
There's a plan in place by all of the rival groups to build a new government in Iran. Chris Murphy of Connecticut and his colleagues on the Democratic Party side would rather use diplomatic relations with the existing terror regime there than actually stand up for the people of Iran. And they won't even stand up for the American people by opening the Department of Homeland Security to keep us safe domestically at a time we're dealing with a terror regime like Iran. I mentioned earlier there's polling out. The only thing Americans hate more than AI in this country is Iran and the Democratic Party. Is it any wonder why the American people hate the Democratic Party? And by the way, that's NBC News' polling. It's not Fox News' polling. NBC News shows that Iran and the Democratic Party are the two things this country hates the most. They hate them more than Donald Trump, Marco Rubio, J.D. Vance, or even artificial intelligence. Welcome back. It is Eric Erickson here. Y'all, I need to talk about the dignified transfer that happened at Dover Air Force Base. A lot of people are attacking Donald Trump for not taking his cap off. And there are also people attacking Donald Trump for not bowing his head as the dead soldiers from the Middle East were taken off the plane. The president probably should have taken his cap off as a sign of respect, but he's an 80-year-old who doesn't like people to see his disheveled head. But the reason the president did not bow his head is because he was saluting, and people are showing pictures of Donald Trump from behind with others there, Melania Trump and others bowing their head and the president not, and that's because the president was saluting. If you saw the picture from the front, he was saluting as the commander-in-chief to the bodies. What I also find very, very notable is that the people who are the loudest attacking Donald Trump for not taking his cap off and not bowing his head are the very same people who defended Joe Biden for checking his watch repeatedly at a previous dignified transfer. Joe Biden checked his watch repeatedly during that time, and many of the Democrats attacking Donald Trump today denied it, but it was actually caught on film, and even the deceased families said it happened. They saw it happen. Old Glory Bank would like to be your bank. You can go to oldglorybank.com today and sign up. If you go to oldglorybank.com/Eric, you can find out all the information, and I get the credit for you going. They're my bank. I've used them for 2 years now. You can use them too. oldglorybank.com/ERICK. Old Glory Bank's one of the fastest growing banks in the country. They're on the verge of being publicly traded on NASDAQ. They will protect your right to bank. In fact, they were started because of the debanking trends where the left was pressuring sympathetic banks to shut down bank accounts of conservatives, and they thought conservatives need a bank where they know they're going to be able to do banking. That's why I went with them, being a conservative radio show host. But, you know, if you're a gun manufacturer, gun store, if you're a conservative, they're a great place to bank, but anybody can bank. They're oldglorybank.com/Eric, oldglorybank.com/ERICK. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. Terms and conditions apply.